Marlo's going to be in a play at the Civic Theater in a couple of weeks, and it's about nurses in Vietnam. And she's not going to be singing, which is a shame. But I hope you all go and see her at the Civic Theater. Now, before I get going, well, I got to do this. Ooh. She gave me high tech. You can hear me, right? And that worked. All right. But I don't know about the lights. You sure? All right.
No.
Now, I was asked to make talks, like 2 or 3 of one for the DAR of all things. And in view of that, I went to a local seamstress to see if she could let out my jacket so that I could wear it, giving the speech. And she said, well, when you lose 50 pounds, you come back and I'll give it a try. And I haven't lost those 50 pounds. Sorry about that. And I also want to let you know, before I start, that when I was in Europe, I have no idea what the day was, the date was, or a map, or where we were. Nothing. Now I'm going to talk to you like I knew. Well, about 3 years after the war, the division I was in mailed this history book, and I've read it a few times. So now I know where I was. And then the regiment had a book. So I'm trying to tell you what happened. I didn't know at the time. So there I am. And, oh, this picture was taken about 3 months after I came home from the service in January of 1946. And I'm 20. And I read the article in the paper today about underage drinking. But I learned how to drink a beer. And so when I tried to get served in Kalamazoo, no luck. So we had to drive to Paw Paw to the village pump. And they ignored it. So now we'll see if I can push the right button. No, I'm going backwards tonight. Well, I wanted to show you my honorable discharge papers of January 1946 at Camp Atterbury, Indiana. And I know there's some people in Alpena that think Obama was never born, or at least not in this country. So I brought my birth certificate in case you want to check that out. Uh-oh. Now that says Milroy was there, a book. Well, actually, here is one that I wrote. Now, it says, the worst-selling book ever written. Well, that's true. I've distributed about 1,000 books. My wife doesn't know that. She's not here. And I've never charged for one book. And I've had more fun meeting new people. And there's a book in Thailand, and there's a book in the Philippines, and Russia, and Germany, and a few places. So I've had a lot of fun with the book. And there's one in the library, by the way, put there about 5 years ago, with misspelled words in it, and some poor grammar, and a couple other errors. But the current one I'm giving away is okay. Now, I'm going to take you back to January of 1943 in Kalamazoo, Michigan. That's when I graduated from high school, Kalamazoo Central High School, with several hundred people. And I got a scholarship to Western Academic for a whole semester. And how many dollars do you think it was worth? 25. And if I didn't give you one to Kalamazoo College, that would have been worth $300. So when I graduated, I decided to go to Western. And so did my friend Mel Van Ditz, who died about 2 weeks ago. And Mel was 6'4", and the starting center on our high school basketball team, and I was a substitute. And then when we went to Western, Coach Buck Reed put Mel on the first team right away. and I was a substitute on the freshman team. So then we went through that semester, and in July that summer, I turned 18. And 2 days later, so did Mel. And it wasn't long before our draft notice came. We did not volunteer. We got drafted. All right. So we went down to Detroit, and they gave us certain tests. I don't remember what they were. And decided we're in the Army, and our first stop was going to be at Fort Custer near Battle Creek in almost Kalamazoo. So that's where we started for a few days to get our outfits and get ready to go somewhere. Now, I had passed some tests that put me in a program called the ASTP, the Army Specialized Training Program. And we were told that after basic training, 13 weeks, we would be sent to some college, university in the States and study engineering for 2 years and graduate as a second lieutenant. Sounded pretty good. And the war would be over by then, maybe. So that looked pretty good. So I ended up getting on a train to go to Fort Benning, Georgia. Now, there really are only two things I want to tell you, basically, about Fort Benning, 13 weeks there. I have a picture, the bottom one over there, of the whole company and the pines in Georgia. And of course, I learned how to dig a foxhole in the red clay. And they try to teach me other things. But you natives of Alpena won't believe that this 18-year-old, I had a weak BB gun. And that's the extent of my knowledge about guns. So needless to say, at Fort Benning, they had their work cut out for them to teach me how to fire a rifle, M1, and how to take it apart and clean it and boil it and put it back together again and fire it. Now, I think the lowest rank of success at shooting a rifle is a marksman. That's me. So I did pass. But one thing about shooting, I want to tell you, see the hands of how many you've heard of Maggie Strors? Maggie Strors. Not too many. Well, what that meant was, if you were working the pits at the range, and a guy shot, and he missed the whole target, you put up this stick with a red flag and wave it, let everybody see he missed the whole target. I don't think that happened to me. And then we also put up the symbols as to how many points they did get. So that's what I learned about rifles. Now, the only other thing I want to tell you about is a racial matter. In the picture, if you look hard, you're going to find 4 colored, and I don't dare to say boys, but that's what I was. But anyway, 4 colored people. And in that's all, in that whole big group. And they were in the ASTP, headed for college. It happened that all 4 of them were in the building I was in, 20th Senate building. And one day, Charlie Patterson from Fort Wayne, Indiana, and I went down to the main base at Fort Benning to get measured for our GI glasses. And there used to be a guy on Laugh-In that wore glasses like this. You remember that little guy? Anyway, these are my GI glasses. Government issue glasses. Free. All right. Now, when we got done, it was time about noon. And I said, let's go have lunch downtown. Because Fort Benning at that time, the downtown was like a city. Law offices and other buildings and several restaurants. He says, no, let's go back to camp. And I said, no, come on. And so we went in a restaurant, and we'd been there 1 minute maybe, and the wait person came up and said, out. And I don't know if they said no niggers here, but they might have, I don't know. But so we left. Well, that disturbed me great. And I couldn't deal with it too well. And growing up in Kalamazoo, I certainly never seen whites-only drinking fountains like in Georgia, that sort of thing. And so we got back to the camp. Now, some of you have probably read books by Studs Terkel. Yes. And one of his books is called The Good War. And I urge you to read it. But he tells of incidences that happened on Army bases that were terrible as to how black people were treated on the Army bases. Killed. So that happened. Now, a friend of mine in Kalamazoo who went to Costa Rica for more than 2 years in the Peace Corps let me know that he bumped into Charlie Patterson in Washington, who had a role in the Peace Corps. And Charlie told him a story about he and I going in that trip. Small world, right? Now, that's really all I want to say about 13 weeks at Fort Benning. And then when I planned to quit, but Marco took up 5 minutes, so I'm watching. Now, the next thing is, while I'm in basic training, you have to notice that I've been assigned to Washington State University in Pullman, Washington. And I actually was kind of mad because some of the guys are going to Wisconsin, places closer to home. But that was the assignment. Sounded pretty good. Except the rumors started, and they were true. The whole program was canceled. And so 190,000 guys that were in that program got shipped into outfits, and most of them, like me, into an infantry outfit in Camp McCain, Mississippi, which is where the top picture is taken. Now, those guys had started training in Kansas in 1942, and I joined them in 44. And we weren't graded too well. One of these two books says, many of the new men were former students under the Army Specialized Training Program. They brought to the regiment much needed youth and vigor. At first, these college kids were looked upon with disfavor by the older soldiers. But it soon became apparent to the most obstinate that intellect and education could not prevent a man from being a good fighting soldier. Now, they still didn't like it. So, the next one is, if I go the right way, that way, this way.
Towards the computer.
Marlo,
You want me to get it for you?
right here. I don't even have one of the smartphones. No. No, I'm sorry. Well, I've done that, so move on. And that, I read that. Now, here go a basketball picture. It happened that they were having a tournament of all the teams in the division. And I think there would have been about 30 teams, I'm not sure that. And I was a starter on that team. Well, after our first victory, we came back and the mess sergeant set us a steak. And then after the next victory, another steak. The next one, I was supposed to be taking a night infiltration course where you crawl on the ground with machine guns going over you and shooting off things. I had done that in the daytime, so I played basketball. Well, we won the tournament, and I thought that now they really thought I'm okay. And I'd done something to make the company proud. Well, I learned later that they weren't proud. They won a lot of money. They were betting on all the games. And I never would have thought of betting on the game. They bet the whole company treasures. So I got popular because they made some money. Next one. Now, there were two big English ships, the Queen Mary and the Queen Elizabeth. And the Queen Mary actually served passengers before it became a transport for troops. Queen Elizabeth never did until after the war, and even then. So we were on the Queen Elizabeth. Now, the ship was designed to carry about 2,000 passengers and about 1,000 in the crew, and that's it. Well, we had 15,000 in our division, the crew, plus I've read several thousand Canadians in that ship. And I've read that the captain was really worried trying to get out of the harbor. If we all got one side of the ship and went down, the Holland Tunnel might have disappeared. So we went out carefully. And I've read that the first 100 miles there were airplanes looking out for submarines. But then we were on our own from then on. But I've read that the speed of these queens was over 30 knots, and the German submarines couldn't go that fast, nor did torpedoes go that fast. So there was a way to do it. Also, they went through the ocean, I'm told, like this, and it took 5 days to get to Scotland. So that was our trip. And I read that Hitler offered a captain of any ship that sunk us equivalent of $250,000 at that time. But we didn't get sunk. Next one, Mark. Now, I want you to see John McCarroll for 3 reasons. His picture's in the white one, and he joined this outfit in '42, and he's a sergeant, a staff sergeant in that picture. Now, John has his picture in the paper because while he was a union guy for 31 years in charge of his union in Pennsylvania, he went to all of the Democratic conventions. But in 1972, he went to the Republican convention in Miami and gave the seconding speech for Nixon. Well, I imagine his union guys didn't like that too much. Then, my friend Al Morelli, who I talked to last week, helped him run a crap game on the Queen Elizabeth. And he walked off with $20,000 in 1944. And my friend told me that they confiscated the money here and said, you'll get it back after the war. And he got it back. But what I really want to tell you is that great singer Frank Sinatra. Now, on the day we had in New York, and I went, among other things, I went to the Capitol Theater where Frank Sinatra was singing, and the girls were screaming. He was about 28 years old at that time. Now, John told several of my friends that he was paid money to put on a medical-looking coat with a couple of his buddies, and the girls were paid money to sit in the front and scream and pass out, and then he'd go down and carry them out. That's how Frank Sinatra was promoting his career, and I believe the story. All right, now we're on to another. All right, now we're looking at where we landed in Scotland and came down to Lower England. And I got a couple of nights in London. And while I was there, I saw the changing of the guard. I saw the crazy people making speeches in Hyde Park. I saw a wax museum. I went to the Paramount Theater, and I listened to the Germans beat bombs coming in and heard them thrashing and saw the damage the next day. And then I wrote a letter home to tell my family that the ladies of the evening approached me. And I feel that bad. Morals. I think there were smarter guys than me there. I just wrote about it. Now, our job when we got down to France, and we landed at Utah Beach 94 days after D-Day, and nobody was shooting at us. On the other hand, my friend Melvin Diss, who died a couple of weeks ago, he landed in the first day, D-Day, but he landed 6 hours after the first wave, and he told us that he wasn't shot at there. On the other hand, when he got up into the French hedgerow, there were fightbacks were going along, and there were tanks behind them, and they're really happy because now we got some support. Except the tankers thought they were Germans, and they killed 3 of the 5 and wounded my friend and the other guy. And Mel had a slug in his thigh, which he carried till he died a couple of weeks ago. But when he came back to Kalamazoo, he played on the basketball team 3 more years with that slug in his thigh. Now, our job was to replace an outfit that was controlled in the area around Saint Nazaire and Lorient. These are on the Atlantic Ocean, and they're places where the German submarines were coming in to be repaired. And we were told that about 50,000 German troops were in that area. And our job was to be there to go out on patrols looking for them to make sure they weren't trying to rejoin their forces. So that's what we did. We did patrols, and they did patrols. But it wasn't a big war. And I'll tell you one thing, if somebody gave the order for our 15,000 guys to try to defeat 50,000 guys, that would have been ridiculous. So, but we spent, so supposedly the books say, 106 days of combat. Well, 700 some guys were casualties of our 15,000, and not many died. But a guy in our company, a sergeant, was killed out on a patrol. So, and then we got shelled. And the first night, I won't bore you because there's too much time on, but I was scared to death. When we got out to take our position, our squad, all but two of us, was room for us in a dugout, already been dug, to be looking out for Germans. They told this guy and I to go across the way, so we're sitting on the ground. In the middle of the night, I woke up, and I thought I saw a rifle with a moonlight on. I was scared to death. My rifle was on my lap. I didn't dare to move, but it was all in my head. And they started shooting guns. We had first night jitters in combat. Now, a friend of mine told me I shouldn't tell you this, but I never fired my rifle once in the 106 days of combat there, not once. And hardly anybody else did either. We captured them. I was on patrols. We captured guys. But I never fired the gun. And one time, I was sitting out by myself in a dugout in an area I was supposed to be looking for Germans. And I had a pocketbook I was reading, kind of glancing out. And I was used to seeing the farmers out there working the fields during this war, right? And all of a sudden I looked, and I saw two guys coming my way. I didn't see any helmets or any weapons, but I wasn't sure, Germans or what. So I did have my rifle on one, and I'm not a good shot. But I might have got one if they were Germans. But I thought they might be French, so I didn't shoot. Well, a couple of minutes later, I heard a shooting going on. They were Germans. So I told you, I'm no hero. And that's about the end of it. So now the next one. Now we're headed for the big front, up near the Moselle River. We're getting on 40 and 8 train cars of World War I first. They're supposedly held 40 men or 8 horses. And there's no heating, straw on the floor, a bucket in the corner in case you couldn't hold it till the next stop. And that's the way we traveled to get up near the Moselle River. And snow was beginning to happen. And the night before, we're setting up our pup tents. Next one. Now, I have a sign on my car that says I'm a veteran of the Battle of Bulge. And I am, because we're in the Ardennes campaign. But every time I see the pincer, I know I'm south of that pincer. And I got a friend, Lloyd Aikens, in town that was closer to that pincer than I was. So this week I gave him a badge to wear. I thought about wearing it today. It looks nice, veteran of the Battle of Bulge. But this does certify that I am one in our division, 94th, is in the Ardennes campaign. Well, you can't see this. But I'm just pointing out a little tiny area on the other side of the Moselle River where we're starting to have some action. And it's January 14th. Now, snowing, it's cold, very cold. And I learned later it's one of the worst winters that they have. And we go out in this wooded area in support of a unit that was attacking a little village called Tettingen. And I brought along a book to read when it got late. And my sergeant came up to me and said, "You get outside the woods and be on the lookout for Germans." So that's where I go. So I'm outside the woods. And then just before it got light, the first time for me, but the usual activity of our troops at that time, was about a half an hour of tremendous artillery coming in where the attack's going to be. And I felt at that time that I never saw anything so bright, the lights and the sounds ever. And I say none of the July 4th events impact me as much as that did, but it did. So then, it got late, and I saw our troops walking down towards that little village, and I spotted a foxhole somebody had dug filled with snow near me. And I'm getting used to the sounds of the Germans shooting back and the fighting going on. I can't see it closely. So then, probably 2 hours later, all of a sudden I heard an artillery battery open up someplace else. I never heard them before. And in came these shells right into our woods. And I hit that foxhole, and it was wet. And I'm in that foxhole. Well, then I heard our guys that had been wounded, the noises from them. Some had been killed. And so then the war continued the way it was down there. And I don't know if it was 2 or 4 hours later. Sometime I heard that battery again. And this time, in they came. And they killed a man by the name of Morris Redmond. And he's in the picture down at the bottom in the same company as I was. He's in the picture above in the same company as I was. And he was one of 10 kids in New Orleans. He was the oldest in the family. And at age 18, he had graduated from college and was in law school. And he got killed. And if you ever want to think about the stupidity of war and what that guy might have done for this work, he's buried in Luxembourg right now. I went to our reunion in New Orleans 2 years ago, and I invited his family to be there as my guest and to have us pay attention to them on behalf of their relatives. Now, next, well, the next day it's our turn to start a fight. And the engineers cleared a path of mines, supposedly, and we went down towards these little towns and attacked them. And later in the afternoon, we were going door to door, throwing grenades in the houses. And I came walking around the house, and a friend of mine, I come around into a garage, and he's on the ground, there's the German right there. And I think what happened, the German gave up to us, because he could have got us easily. And I don't know if he was out of his mind, or if my friend had tried to shoot him in the recoil, but the recoil kicked him on his fanny. I think his gun was dirty. So that happened. And then for a few days, we hid out in houses, hoping the shells that were coming at us wouldn't hit us. And then we went on a rest area, and we didn't suffer the counterattacks that the guys that replaced us suffered. Then I'll skip to another subject. Now this, I was the first started January 14, 15. I'm going to get quickly through something to get to February 22nd. Now, we were in a situation to attack in the morning, and our platoon was supposed to be in the lead. And we went through a tank trap and out of it. And we got up into this area, and we didn't know this. But it turns out that the Germans had planted a bunch of shoe mines, SCHU, little boxes that had explosives in them, no shrapnel. But if you step on them, either pull your foot off or mangle it at least, or whatever other part of your body hit that. So we were all of a sudden getting trapped for this. And then, of course, the Germans started shooting at us. And I don't know how this happened, but one of our guys found a communication trench, like the First World War, that we went up to, and we could get in it, and we were down low enough that the rifles and the machine guns couldn't get us. But the shells coming in felt like they're coming right down your head. And, well, I can't express what it felt like, but it wasn't fun. Now, we didn't move far for quite a while. But when we get to February 22nd, I'm going to take you to maybe the Saar River. Yeah. Now, we're coming from this direction, and the Germans are on these hills over here, which are maybe 300 or 400 feet high. And they got pillboxes there, and they can see us. Well, we're supposed to cross. Now, I didn't see General Patton myself, but several of my close friends have told me they did. And they heard him say to our officers, "You're crossing today." He had a bunch of reporters that are to show off. So he said, you're going today. I don't care how many dog tags are in that basket. Now this is what we wore around our neck with our number on it. If we died or were wounded, they know who we were. Well, I didn't hear him say that. But at that time, I was with a bunch of guys down close to the river, lying on my belly, and could see the Germans, and our engineers were supposed to get the boats there and put out smoke that would hide us from the German. But neither of those things happened. So we're just lying there. We're not about to cross. So that night when it got dark, we came back. And then we did cross that night. And they couldn't see us. And that night, I don't have time to go into detail, but I did lose 2 men within that 24 hours. I left some guys out places, but I left 3 down on the road. And when I came down there to bring them back, 2 of our guys were dead and the Germans dead. And then the guy that survived told me that they heard somebody walking down the road and they thought it was me. And so he got too close. And so I lost 2 guys. So then, now I become a hero. Because I called Lieutenant Robert Foster this week. He's 98 near Atlanta, Georgia, and sharp as a tack, because he was our platoon leader. Well, our company commander was killed, William Brightman. Our regimental commander was wounded severely, and Lieutenant Foster became the company commander. And I was put in charge of the platoon. Sorry about that. Hero. I was the only one left of our original 40 in that platoon from the States. Now, Lieutenant Foster got wounded the next day, so he didn't last as company commander but 1 day. Now, next part of our trip, well, if you're not quite coming back, but we did go through a period where we're going single file over these hills, a whole battalion, except the lead platoon kind of fanned out so we wouldn't get ambushed. And there came a day that my platoon was in the lead. So we came to the edge of a woods in an open space, and I sent a couple of scouts across to draw fire or whatever. I had been a scout, so I know that's not a good position. But anyway, they didn't get shot at, and they got into the woods. And then we all followed. Well, when I get in that woods area and was walking, all of a sudden I saw all of our guys hit the deck. And so I went up there to see what's going on, And they pointed, maybe from here, a little farther than the wall. There was a German looking, and apparently hadn't seen us. I don't know. So I started walking over, I got my rifle like this. You're not supposed to shoot a rifle anyway. But when he spotted me, I started shooting. And I missed. And he went down, and he came back up with a flag, and about 10 guys gave up. Then as we kept going through that wooded area, we came in another area where there were a bunch of young kids and old men by Army standards, a lot younger than me. Now, they were out to protect their city, and they were so well camouflaged, if they wanted to shoot, I wouldn't be here. But they were ready to give up. It was getting that close to the end of the month. So they gave. Now we're headed to the next spot, to the Rhine River, to Ludwigshafen. And it's a big industrial town, and I almost feel like I can remember walking near that factory. And my name's in the history book of that area. But I was scared to death as well. First, I watched our tanks trying to go in some open fields and get shot up. And there were a bunch of Germans in civilian clothes, which I'm sure just took off their uniforms the day before. And they were tipping people off. And so then, when we came going down the main street, the big street, I was scared to death of snipers that could be up in those buildings that I could. But I'm here. So we made it. And now, our next trip was to get on those 40 and 8s and go up near Dusseldorf. That's that city where the airplane was headed to crash. And we go up there. And the next one shows that, because near it is a town called Wuppertal. And it had a 10-mile tram hanging from this over a river. 10 miles. I think it's the only one in the world at the time. And while we were there, my platoon had to go to a prison to be in charge there. And we did. Now, there were 3 buildings. One building, they'd had their political prisoners, we let them go. The next building were real criminals. The next building, we were locking up our political prisoners. And we took all the weapons away from the guards, but they ran the prison. And I just had one guy out at the main point with his rifle. But if they wanted to knock us off prison was every day to go with the German guard down to where we had locked people up. And we'd knock on the door, and I would say in great German, "Wie heißen Sie?" And then he might say Schmidt. And I'd say, "Vornamen," their first name, I think. He'd say Carl. And that was the guy supposed to be there, so we go down to the next one. And also, when I got called back to the company headquarters, my buddies that I thought I had control of the situation told me they had more parties when I was gone. They pulled out all that wine. I didn't know what was going on. Anyway, that was there. So now, next, I guess I'm going to show you the Medal of Honor winner. Now, this guy, a year and a half ago, died. Is the oldest living Medal of Honor winner. Nicholas Oresco, a little guy from New Jersey. I wish you would look on your computers at the 94th Division home page and then look for the Medal of Honor winner and see what message he's going to tell you is what he did to win that award. And it's pretty interesting. I have two other versions of what he might have done, but anyway, he is dead now. Next one. Uh-oh. Now, I got the Bronze Star, and I only want to tell you that because, in fact, I'm going to read something to you. I don't know who wrote this. And I also tell you, I think I'm going to see a slide that about 18% of our 15,000 got the Bronze Star. 18%. It's in that book. This says, and I don't know who wrote this, but it says that me, I get this Bronze Star for heroic achievement in connection with military operations against an enemy of the United States from the 22nd of February to the 24th of March. When his platoon leader was wounded, Sergeant Milroy assumed command of the platoon, repeatedly exposing himself to enemy fire. He inspired his, nobody asked me if I inspired anybody, but he inspired his men by his fearless example. Can you believe that? And during the crossing of the Saar River, he led his men in every attack and captured all the assigned objectives. Sergeant Milroy's initiative and courage and his determined attention to duty exemplify the highest tradition of military service and with the military from Kalamazoo, Michigan. Now, I want to tell you that I remember when the general gave me the award, and he said to me, "Where are you from, soldier?" And I said, "Kalamazoo." And he said, and he had been in Fort Custer and been in Kalamazoo. He said, "Boy, I really like the park club there." Well, if any have been to Kalamazoo, that's a watering hole for the fancy, wealthy people in town. So I had that discussion with him because later it turned out the government decided that every guy that won the combat infantryman's badge, which I have right here, was entitled to the Bronze Star. So I wrote the government a letter. I said, "Is that Bronze Star that I got the same one everybody's getting?" Because they have that. And they didn't answer the question, but they sent me a whole bunch of new medals of mine, including, here's the Bronze Star. It's got my name on it and stuff like that. And they sent me a Purple Heart. Well, I didn't earn the Purple Heart. So I wrote them back and I said, "Look, can you get a heart, Purple Heart for post-traumatic stress disorder? Maybe I got that." And they said no. I mean, they didn't answer though. And so they didn't answer. So I couldn't have hold the Purple Heart. You have to get wounded. I didn't get wounded. So I tore it up and threw it away. So it's gone. Now, we're almost done. Well, I don't know if the next slide shows. That's what I read to you. Next one. And that one, oh, well, there's that 18% in that history book. Got the Bronze Star. Next one, oh, well, my buddy and I became tech sergeants. And, you know, I just went from private to tech sergeant like gangbusters. I'm the only one left. So, anyway, that's when we became tech sergeant. Next one. Now, this is a parade in Pilsen, and I've gone too long, so I won't tell you the detail, but I'll just say I was there in Pilsen in that parade. Next one. Oh, now this is in the history book of the casualties that we had of the 15,000. We actually had 10,000 replace them, so you could extrapolate the same numbers to that 10,000. But 1,200 were killed, 4,600 got wounded, and 5,000 got frozen feet. That's 10.9, 73%. Nothing happened to me, except my friends here will testify I do have post-traumatic stress disorder. Now, right, Ron? Then, maybe, well, there's a souvenir. Now, oops, back. The helmet, German helmet, I picked up at the prison, and I put some adhesive tape on it with my home address and mailed